Charlotte L. Fortin Grimke dedicated her life to the anti-slavery and racial discriminatory struggles of the 1800s. Charlotte was a teacher of thousands of ex-slaves in South Carolina after the Civil War began.
Religion has been the cornerstone of strength and faith for people of African descent throughout the many centuries. There seems to be a long-standing belief throughout our history on this planet of something greater than ourselves, an unshakable faith that has helped us bear the unbearable. Some religious leaders must have felt their task was a near impossible one, to convince a race of people there is always hope.
James Augustine Healy became the first Catholic bishop of African descent. Healy presided over the Maine and New Hampshire dioceses. Henry McNeil Turner, AME bishop, fought against the Georgia legislature concerning blacks being barred from holding state offices. Harvey Johnson was a Baptist leader who worked tirelessly to have blacks admitted to the state bar in Baltimore. Samuel Ringgold Ward, Presbyterian pastor, had a Reverend Martin Luther King oratory style. Ward was outspoken against the fugitive slave law. George Washington Williams was a noted scholar and historian. In Cincinnati, Ohio, he became pastor of the Union Baptist Church, studied at law school, and subsequently practiced law on Ohio's Supreme Court. Richard H. Kane, bishop of the AME Church, had limited educational opportunities until entering the ministry. Not only did he aid the freedmen through his pastoral duties, but fought long and hard as a U.S. congressman for the passage of the 14th Amendment for the civil rights of his people. Later, Kane became president of Paul Quinn College in Waco, Texas.
Giving a voice to the oppressed, representing issues too long ignored by the status quo, creating needed changes in the laws of the land, demanding fair and equal treatment, as well as providing outlets of assistance for the poor and needy. These were but a few of the difficult tasks undertaken by politicians and public servants of color, work that still must continue to be pursued for causes left unfinished. Robert Small served both in the South Carolina legislature and the U.S. House of Representatives after the Civil War. But perhaps Small's greatest claim to fame occurred during the Civil War. Small and his family piloted a Confederate ship, the Planter, past several southern checkpoints, delivering it into the hands of the Union officials, thus gaining his freedom. Appointed Minister of Liberia, Africa in 1876, John H. Smythe also became representative of several European governments. Francis L. Cardozo was elected South Carolina's Secretary of State 1868 to 1872, and the Treasurer from 1872 to 1876. Norris Wright Cooney was a human rights champion, known for his honesty and integrity. Entering Texas politics around the passage of the 14th Amendment, Cooney fought adamantly for racial equality. Oscar James Dunn was Lieutenant Governor of Louisiana. As a traveling agent for the Freedmen's Bureau at the close of the Civil War, Dunn's job was to check on employment practices of plantation owners. He uncovered many abuses of non-payment of wages. Hiram R. Rebels was the first black American elected to the Senate in the nation's capital from the state of Mississippi. Oberlin, Ohio native Mary Barnett Talbot, a Red Cross nurse with the American Expeditionary Forces in France during World War I, held 2 college degrees. Upon returning to the U.S. after wartime, she became active as a civil rights worker. James Lewis had an interesting public service career at the close of the Civil War. He was an agent for the Freedmen's Bureau, establishing schools and training centers for blacks in the South. Lewis also was a U.S. Customs inspector, police administrator, and administrator of public improvements in New Orleans. The Colored National Convention held April the 5th through the 7th, 1876 in Nashville, Tennessee, studied the social and political problems of blacks. The black members of U.S. Congress during Reconstruction were Benjamin Turner, Robert D. Large, Josiah T. Walker, Jefferson Long, Joseph M. Rainey, and Robert Brown Elliott. When L. Douglas Waller was sworn in as Virginia's governor, he also became the first African-American elected chief executive of a state.
We do have a glorious past. We have a past that is filled with ups and downs like everyone's lives, but we have a past that is glorious. As creators, as originators of civilization, there's nothing that we can't accomplish in the future. Keeping in mind that we have so many people, so many wonderful ancestors whose spirit we can call upon, can do nothing but make us feel all the better. As we acknowledge their presence, as we acknowledge their contributions, we're paying homage to a wonderful legacy. As I look at the contributions of significant unsung African entrepreneurs and artists and writers, I'm inspired to pick up where they left off. I'm inspired to pick up and try to make the world better for children that haven't been born yet. There are, without a doubt, more unsung heroes than what you'll see in Black in Time. There are unsung heroes who, because of racism, will go down as who have been portrayed as not being heroic at all. Truly, when you're looking at history, it matters through whose eyes you're looking through.
Black business directories, such as this one published in Atlanta, Georgia in 1928, promoted entrepreneurs and their commercial establishments.
I don't think that necessarily that the influences have changed. I think the happenstances or the circumstances or the situations have changed. What has happened is we still have the marvelous inventors and writers and doctors and educators and scientists that existed throughout time. The difference is now there's a separation between where they're at and where we're at. During some of America's past, people of our culture that excelled were visible to us. They were within our reach because society didn't allow for them to pretend that they were separate from us. You know, no matter how high you got, where you stayed was still a black neighborhood. It may have been a more influential neighborhood or a better part of the black community, but it was still within the black community. You weren't allowed to separate and pretend that perhaps you were escaping the common situation of our people. Now, and not only that, but there was a plethora of information. People knew who the black doctors were and who the black teachers were when they walked down the street. We don't even recognize our own people. We don't put a value in understanding where they're coming from and what they're doing. Because what history does for us is they pull out certain ones, that certain teachers and certain poets and certain actors that were the cream of their crop and who were maybe successful enough to force the demand for the rest of America to pay attention to them, and then they they feed them to us and they recycle those exact same images to us over a period of time instead of showing the wide plethora of black nuances that have existed. I mean, we've had entire revolutions within every field, within science, within history, within art, within music. we've made such dynamic contributions, and we're not submerged within our own culture. We're not submerged within the knowledge of what we have done and are still doing, because those things haven't changed. We still exist. We're still smiling. We're still here.